This is Ardenia Signal.
A voice from a future we still have time to build.
Hello. How are we today? Oh my God, it's the first live podcast for Ardenia Signal. I'll be honest, I'm very nervous, so we're just gonna roll with it, get started. So today we came up with this idea to I was just chatting with my protege here. Say hello, her name's Jocelyn.
Hi guys.
As you know, it's probably like a bit of out of depth, so we're probably gonna have to break the ice a bit. And once we get into it, we'll probably yap like normal. The reason why we started this one is because literally, Jocelyn and I, we were just chatting for a whole 2 hours straight, and then we just, oh wait, you were just talking some really interesting stuff, and we should have just made a podcast over it. I'm like, oh yeah, we should have, but we didn't, and now we should actually go out of our way and do it so that the yaps are not just yaps that we forget. I mean, I never forget my yaps, but you know. How do you feel about that?
I feel pretty good. Today is gonna be like a new experience for me too, because I've always wanted to be on a podcast and do a podcast. So it's like a half dream completed.
Yeah, right. I don't know, for some reason it feels weird how we have to sometimes make it seem like it's like a massive thing that you have to wait for. Like maybe you have to become famous and then get on stage, when you could just run up to any stage and get started just to get into it. And then you realize it's not that big of a deal, but yeah. Okay, so the point of this today is do a Q&A. I have a few questions here. I literally just had one just then from a person there. So yeah, so I have a friend here. Her name's Tiziana. She's in the community. She just asked, hi, so I just woke up, so I might not be able to make this in live, but I do have a question. What does a healthy work-life balance look like to you, and how do you achieve it? Okay, so this is actually a good question because I used to be an extreme workaholic, and workaholism seems good at first because it's like a good habit that you just constantly do, and because society views a good thing, more of good thing makes sense to be good, right? And I would say no from my experience, because it's okay to have a lot of hang on, so we just got in. Oh, sorry. Hey, Rudolph, how you doing? Awesome. Thanks for joining us, by the way. Anyways, back to the question. Workaholism is fine, but it is a form of specialization. And as specialization is good. It helps you do something better. But the problem with it is that since you're specializing, if it's not hitting something that you need, you kind of get more stuck in a hole, right? You're in a more of a pit, and it's hard to pivot. And that's the benefit of not specializing. That's why, people choose Mario when they don't know who to play as in games, because Mario's an all-rounder, right? Meanwhile, if you knew the game's about shooting something, then you might get a sniper, like Link with the bow in a game. Generally though, so as a workaholic, it was great to work hard to make money, but then there's some things that money can't buy, and stuff like relationships, learning to talk to people, learning to notice things in life that you have to slow down for. And being a workaholic, you can really you might go too fast mentally in life, where it's kind of like driving 200 k's down a highway, where the only thing you can see is the big signs and the obvious turns. Everything else is a blur. So the only thing you can get fixated about is the destination. And the problem with that is, it's not a problem if it's easy, straight line. It can be cruisy, but the problem is nowadays it can be more competitive. The road can be more overcrowded. So now that you're stuck on a highway, you can't really go anywhere else to join the crowd, and it feels soul draining. But if you were to slow down and take your foot off the gas pedal, you can see more of the details. You can see the animals, you can see the trees, you can see you can see the light, how it cuts through the sky, and it just it makes the journey more fulfilling, fun. My main point, to summarize it real quick, was that workaholism's fine until you're neglecting other important things in life that workaholism can't fix. It's like having a house. The front of your house is painted, great, but maybe the back of the house needs painted. And it doesn't make sense to just keep painting the front with more paint if the back needs painting, right? That's basically the quick analogy here. So for me, a good work-life balance It can be anything. It's up to you. It's not just, oh, you gotta work only 2 hours a week and make a shit ton of money. It depends, but as long as your values are met and you're content, that's really the simple answer. But for me, how I personally work life now is that I work on my own jobs now. Even though I'm technically an apprentice and I should be working 40 hours like a dog for some other sparky that chucks me to the worst shit jobs, I work my own jobs now because I built my own people skills, I built my own clients, I built my own connections now. And I'm actually about to take my electrician exam like on Monday this week for the next 2 weeks. And after that, I'll be fully qualified, assuming I pass. But I'm pretty confident to pass because, you know, I've been working on my own for a whole year and nothing has burnt down yet. So I'm pretty sure I'll be fine in that element. So to achieve that though, it's really hard because, you know, for a business point of view, the best way to save money is to literally pay people less because they're like the biggest expense besides like other things. And how do you do that without losing them is to like take away their sense of self. So you just take away as much inspiration you can from them to the point where they're too scared to leave because they don't believe there's better things out there to do. I used to be like that where even though I was like really, really good electrician when I was working for my old boss, and I want to be clear, my old boss wasn't a bad person. He's just part of the system too, that he doesn't know there's a better way. He just thinks that you just got to work hard and then run a business and pay other people less money. And then you just get a mortgage and buy a big house and you're set for life. And now he's in it with like 3 kids and he can't really get out. And you know what? I hope he's happy though. But he is part of the system, and that's why the construction industry, there's a reason why 2/3 of apprentices are dropping out in the last year because they just can't survive that cost of living. Because what took him 4 years to learn is still taking us 4 years to learn. But the problem is the cost of living and everything else is going up and up, so that even if it takes us 4 years, we can't afford the the cost. Like I have a friend who, I think he's qualified now, so I'm happy for him now. But when he's in his mid-30s, so he was about to have a child and he had just bought a house and he could only negotiate 3 years down for a fixed interest rate. And he said, okay, I will just budget the crap out of my food. I'll cook everything. I'll make sure everything's under control so that everything's within budget. And then his partner would just do whatever she wants. And he would just be like, I'll make sure everything stays under control though. But then when he found out that it would take an extra 6 months or 8 months for him to finish, that extra year that he was mentally prepared to pay like a shit ton of interest on for his mortgage, now he's like, oh shit, and now I have to work 3 jobs. So he took on a job as a bakery delivery guy and then doing cashiers on the side. Like I know he's a great guy, but during that time, he just lost himself. Like you could see him, he's just very, very like, it's hard for him to think creatively for himself. He just wants things to be set and go. And he just does the work. Like I literally would talk to him and I couldn't talk to him because his music's blasting like over like, I don't know, like 20 decibels or something. And I literally have to like whack him in the head, just say, hey, you need to help me with this because it was like important. But because he just wanted to lock in, get his 8 hours done for the day, he'll get annoyed every time I ask him a question or talk to him because that means he has to re-engage in the moment. And when he has to re-engage in the moment, time slows down. And that means that's more mental suffering he has to go through just to get through that extra year that he has to get through. And I wasn't a perfect guy either, but this is all in retrospect. This is all like I was adding to the fire sometimes because I had a huge ego at the time from buying tools, thinking that like from his point of view, he's like, oh, it must be nice to be able to spend all that money on tools and stuff, right? And from him, it was like, well, you know, you didn't have to like buy a house. You didn't have to do that. But he's like, no, I'm in my mid-30s. I got to have a family. You know, I have a wife. I want kids. And I'm like, there's a reason why it's important early on to make the right choices, but I'm not saying that's a high road, but it's like it is important. Like there is a deadline for a reason. There's a reason why people feel pressure to do shit and get done quickly, but at the same time that pressure can also hold you back because now you're overwhelmed because now you're too scared to risk that one thing because you think, oh, if that doesn't work out, everything will fail. And that's how perfectionism comes out. And that when you're trying to be a perfect person, the best way to stay perfect is to not make any attempts to do anything. And that's how you get analysis paralysis. And that's how all these things add up to make you just scared to make a move. And then now you're stuck in a job that pays you the bills and then you can't get out. And well, and that's what I'm trying to, I'm trying to like enlightened that how to get out of that is to take a step back. And, you know, this is a huge luxury that I was able to have once I got through my 5-year breakup. I was able to just sit back and not really work for 6 months straight. And all I did during that time was take my dog to the park and just watch my dog play around. And then by chance, there was people that were willing to talk to me. And that's how I learned to just learn more about life, because I was talking to people and I wasn't trying to prove myself, because I didn't really think that people cared to talk to me, and people just came to talk to me. I started hearing about stuff that I never heard about, how like a person lives in the mines, his experiences, and then a person who lives at the IT, their experiences, and then it all adds up for you to just notice there's more things you can do if you're willing to step back and just, you know, with your values that you have a reference to decide what you want to do with your life. But the first step is to step back and find yourself. And it's a lot harder to say. It's easier said than done, because people will always say, oh, like, just be yourself is a general like advice that people try to give you, but it's really poor, because it's like, who's myself? Is it the version of me that is built for survival because I grew up in a very chaotic household? Or is it a self that, you know, that provides in people pleasers and everyone's happy to have around? Or be the self that actually chooses me? But that means I have to be alone. There is a real reluctance to choose yourself because it means being alone. There's a reason why a lot of people generally are feeling like, I don't want to, you know how like, you know you could do better, but you're reluctant to do it. I guess the calling of your hero moment, where it's like, it's time to be your own main character and pick up your shovel and just do the digging for a better life. There's a reason why people generally don't want to do that, because it's the loneliness that comes with it. To build your own path means being alone. And no one wants to be alone, because deep down, if you look at it from a light survival point of view, being alone is usually associated with being exiled, usually associated with not being able to fend for yourself in the wild, because there's no one there to support you. As soon as you go to sleep, it's very dangerous. And I think that's still ingrained in most people until you refeed enough information to yourself that it's safe to be alone. Generally though, like with society, they don't want you to go alone because you're harder to pitch to. It's really hard to sell to you if you do your own thing, because you can just do everything yourself. So they try to make you dependent, and that's why they want you to specialize. For me, if you know yourself thoroughly, everything else in life becomes so straightforward, and even often easy. But to know yourself can take ages and feel impossible at times. I totally agree. And for most people, it can be very difficult because, you know, some people like to stay the same until the pain of staying the same is too much. For me, it was that case. Like, you know, as much as I miss my first love and every single that, I know that I wouldn't be as confident, self-loving, and like achieve the greatest version of myself right now if it wasn't for her leaving, because her leaving gave me so much pain that I couldn't just sit still and just do nothing. I needed to fight for a better future for myself, because, you know, turn that ultimate loss I have into a fair trade. And that doesn't have to be a thing anymore. That's why I'm building this community, so that you can still choose yourself, but you don't have to do it alone. You will meet people who are aligned with you, who respect your journey, who aren't trying to tell you what to do, but they still recognize you because they're going through it themselves. This is why our society right now isn't built for thriving, because to thrive means going on your own. And while that's nice and all, to sometimes do your own thing and be introverted and all that at times, it can be suffocating if it's all the time. So that's why I'm trying to push for this movement, so that we can all thrive as a standard and still be there for each other when we need it. Because we are built to connect. Because think about it. If you step back, why do you even bother talking to you? If I, like Jocelyn, if I knew that I could do everything myself, I wouldn't. But deep down, we know that the things that you have gone out and done for yourself, like read and write books, that I find valuable, because I don't have all the time in the world. We don't all have time in the world. Because that's why immortality can seem like an amazing gift, because it's like, oh, I can do everything. But we unfortunately don't have that luxury to live forever, so we can't do everything. And that's why we try to speed up our understanding of life by connecting with others. How do you feel so far when I say that, Jocelyn?
The fact about you can't just do it by yourself. You need to have like connections and community to build that success. Because it's not just you and your success by yourself. You want to like share that success as well.
Yeah, and that's a great point, to share your success, because honestly, when you get past the point of like this is like, obviously everything I say now, I'm not a guru. I'm not a guy that knows everything. I'm not God. I'm not everything. But so, because I'm no longer participating in the lifestyle where everything I say must be gospel, because in a sense, when you're looking up to a guru, you're doing it because you don't feel safe enough to do the thing yourself. So you're asking someone who has done it for the answers. Because think back in the day, survival, every mistake you make, because we're handling life or death problems, can result in death or great casualties. It's very important to make sure you don't mess up. But the good thing about life or death problems is that it's very easy to not mess up. But we're getting to the point now where there's issues now. It's more about living your best life, and making a mistake isn't the end of the world. But we aren't taught to recognize that. So I'm trying to engage more into living your best life elements. That's how you thrive. Not necessarily, to thrive means you already got surviving under your belt. You can't thrive if you're still worrying about trying to survive, find food and stuff, right? So when I talk about stuff, I'm just sharing my insight and life experience. And if it doesn't resonate with you, you don't have to take it. Take what makes sense to you and then run with it. Apply it to your own life and see if it's valid for you. Because there's always, when it comes to dealing with living your best life, the little things matter so much more, because they can change the result a lot more than just something that can just, get 80% of the job done. Because when you're trying to survive, 80% isn't good enough. But when it comes to trying to express the best version of yourself, extra like 5-10% can go a long way in the long run, because it's no longer just a short-term game you're playing. Survive is for short-term. Thriving is for long-term. And that's why something that might work for me might not work for anyone else, because my situation is uniquely mine. And that's why you can't necessarily compare yourself to others. Because the idea of comparing, like, imagine this. When you're first born, it feels like a race to get to a finish line. And it does, because you haven't had independence. And independence can be simply broken down to stability and safety. Once you have those two down, you don't have to worry about bills, you don't have to worry about food, you don't have to worry about where you sleep. Then it becomes the next level. You finally finish that race, and it becomes living your best life, where you try to enjoy, live life that's endless. That's a whole separate section. What I'm trying to cover here is that till then, you now have to tackle more problems that's more life or death, like trying to pay bills, try to fight food and all that. And oftentimes, because you're not in the position to be able to choose your battles, because it's more urgent, these problems are more urgent. You have to either compromise your values, sacrifice someone else, or you have to blindly listen to someone else and believe in them. Hopefully that what they say works. Those are the three main ways you can tackle when it comes to survival, because those are like the quick, easy ways to handle problems. And generally, most people opt for the first one, which is compromising your values, because that's the easiest one to do first, because others require other people or learning. And sometimes you don't have time to learn. Like, especially when your house is on fire, you have to just cut your losses and just get out. But during that time, it's really difficult to defend everything. So when it comes to a toxic work job where you're just trying to pay the bills, of course it's hard to say, oh, I want to quit and leave, because not everyone's in that luxury position to just leave, because they might not have enough money saved up to leave. So that's why you can easily compare yourself, because you're no longer able to choose yourself, defend your values. Since you can't choose your values and defend them, you can't really get to know yourself, right? So now you're more externally driven, because you're more reacting at this point. If things come to you, you have to react. And that's why people are more focusing on outwards. That's why, people who live in survival culture are more gossip driven, because they actually put the effort in to get ahead, because they're stuck compromising. So instead, they try to maintain where they are, and then they get a huge sense of satisfaction when they see others fail, because someone else took the risk to do something else and they failed, and they're like, oh my God, thank God I didn't take that risk. Thank God I'm still ahead. And you get a sense of satisfaction. That's why in high school and some toxic workplaces, you hear people gossip a lot. But once you get out of that, once you're now thriving, you no longer value that. You no longer care about that. And so really, to get out to find the best job, because yeah, we're still answering the first question, by the way. You have to first earn enough to get a little bit of independence. It doesn't have to be perfect. You need to have enough so that you can step back and just reflect on life and really discover what you want for yourself. And to do that, to like discover what you want, you just gotta try things that just catch your attention and just give it a go with no expectations. There's a lot more to that, but obviously, you say you're interested in dancing, just go to a dance class. Don't go balls in where you just invest into dancing clothes and stuff. Just try a class, give it a go, see if it resonates with you. And then if that works, go in deeper. If it doesn't, pivot and then try something else like cooking. And then that doesn't work, keep going until you find things that connect with you. Because then you slowly are building values. You're slowly building yourself, because now you have more things to reference your values to eventually be like, that one thing that people told me was good, I don't like it. And then if you take the time to figure out why you don't like it, then you know that's why. And then you have that judgment for the time period until more information comes along, and it makes you remold your values. Like, your values will always change and grow. And that's how your vision of yourself and your life will change and grow. Rudolph said, often people let gurus and others define themselves because they do not know who they are. That's right. If you don't know who you are, literally, don't know what your identity is, so it's very easy for others to define and identify you, even if that definition is often wrong. If you know who you are, you can define who you are, know what your values are, and not let others define who you are. Yeah, and that is a really solid point. Some people are a bit aware of it without realizing. Like, you go to a club and you notice that people wear tattoos and wear like very rambunctious clothes because they know that it's harder to express yourself, especially in an environment where you can't speak yourself. So instead, you more focus on dressing you up in a way so you let people judge you and let them define you. And that's how, like, you might meet a lot of tall guys who'll come in, they don't really talk much because society then generally slaps them with all these things like, oh my God, he's so handsome, he's so tall, he's so masculine. He does all this thing and he's just like, oh, I'm not gonna, as soon as he talks and says something silly, people say, oh, he's just a goofball. So they tend to just be more quiet and let people define them. That's why you might see a lot of girls always going like, oh, this guy is so tall, but he's such a two when it comes to personality. He's like a little wall. But yeah, some people enjoy it because it's less work. You don't have to do the work to figure yourself out. You can easily join a group and be part of a group and feel connected. And there's nothing wrong with it. Like, I'm never gonna shame or tell people that it's wrong to choose to be part of a community. Life, like, the point of thrivism isn't to like be better than people. No, it's not ego driven. The point of it is to let you get away with as much of life as you can. Like, if you're literally born in this world and you can get away with hooking out with 1,000 people and having 1 million kids, you would. Because why not? You're like hardwired genetically for it. It's only when someone says, no, you look ugly, go away. And then you're like, oh, okay, I'll work on my hair, I'll work on my face, and I'll try again. And then maybe someone will be like, oh, you look great, I like you, let's get married and have kids and whatever. And then that works. And some people stay there. And for others, it doesn't work, so they have to try harder. Like for me, I was like not like, even now I would say I'm like a 7 at best at times. And I'll have to like invest in my personality, invest in how I dress, invest on what I do, my vision. And that's what attracts and keeps people in my life. If it was just me as a person, that's like, that won't keep people. Like, it doesn't, at least not the people I want to keep around. Some people like me because I'm Asian, and, you know, I try talking to them and it's just, they try to label you, they try to define you, and I'm just like, that's not me. I don't want to be in a box, because I've been in a box and it's suffocating. Let me out. You know, like, Jocelyn, do you feel a similar experience when it comes to that, when people try to put you in a box?
So like, I know someone who's close to me and they always like stereotype people like all the time. Like when they're like, they find out something on the internet, something new about an Asian person or like any culture, and then they stereotype every single Asian person for that one thing that happened. It's like how people are racist to Muslims because of the burning.
Yeah.
And then now every Muslim is a bomber.
Yeah. And like, I understand why they do it. I don't condone it, but I understand why. Because from a survival point of view, like I said, you make one small mistake, it's game over. And most of these people, they're in a position in their life where they're not comfortable with uncertainty, because every time something they don't make an answer, they get punished for it. Maybe when they don't answer quickly enough at school, people mock them, or their parents got angry, or if they chose to do nothing, people be like, hey, you gotta do something, hurry up, and then they do it. And obviously, like, my parents are the same. They're always, my mom grew up with like 9 sisters. She doesn't know what a quiet house sounds like. You come to a family reunion, there is always, there's never, and it's like them yelling at you, it's them saying hi. Like, it's not them hating you. But for people that don't know my family, they always feel like they're getting judged and attacked. And so most of these people, because they're not comfortable with uncertainty, they like answers. And if they don't know themselves to find the answers in their own values, because they didn't do the work, they didn't have the peace and quiet to just try things and make mistakes and figure it out and reference it to build their own sense of self. They subscribe to a community, to a faith, to whatever it is, external, and they tend to come with answers straight away. And sometimes the problem with answers is that things are just different. But because it's different, it doesn't mean it's right or wrong. It's just different. But because people don't like it as it's just different, there's no real answer. People are forced to put it in a box, answer it. Like, is it right? Is it good or bad, or useful or useless? I need to know. And, they just make a decision. Especially that's why, gay people in like religion can be seen as bad, because in the book, like, I don't know, I don't necessarily read the Bible, so I don't want to go too much into it, but the general stereotypes that gay people are bad when it comes to religion, and that doesn't seem to be the case in real life. But because people don't know, it's become more of a newer thing back to time, people have to put it in a box because they don't know how to feel about it. And it's easier to assume the worst of things than positive, because if you assume the positive and it's actually a bad thing, you get hurt. And that's why, all these isms like classism, racism, genderism, not genderism, sexism, sorry. They exist because people aren't comfortable with just being close. That's why people tend to put people in boxes, because the idea of not putting them in box, like in school, say, you used to be that funny guy in school. I used to be the funny guy in school. So you not be funny, people don't know, they don't like that, so they try to put you in a box. I literally had friends that'd be like, hey, bring your hat. You used to be the guy that wear the hat all the time. Keep wearing a hat. And I'm like, I don't wear hats anymore. It's not my thing anymore. I grew out of it. Like, my face is literally not built for hats anymore. But because that means for me to say that and say, hey, that's not my thing anymore, they have to now be ready to embrace new things. And new things can threaten someone's lifestyle, especially when they're so comfortable with the same thing. Because, it takes less mental energy, less resources to do the same thing. That's why there's always an urge to, like, when you work out in the gym, the body's always telling you, stop doing that, it hurts when you're working out, because that's like a new thing you're trying to push your body to. You're trying to do a new thing. And we're hardwired to, like, try to use up as little as possible, because we used to live in a scarcity mindset. And nowadays, we're in an abundance mindset, but our body is still built for scarcity. And that's why, as I'm trying to cut weight right now, by cutting my visceral fat, but I have to do it the hard way. There's no like, oh, I eat this and my body just writes off 50% of it, like as tax or whatever. Like, no, it just takes everything in, and it's just like, oh, okay, I have to watch what I eat now. So maybe 100 years from now, our body can change so that some people can eat whatever and just discard the rest. But we're not at that stage yet. I'll give you an analogy, right? So say that we're born as red, like the color red, and the world used to be red, so you fit in. So back in the day, Stone Age, our body is built for the Stone Age. Everything's fine. Like, we have allergies now because we're now kind of like red, but the world's green. And so we're kind of like trying to force to fit in. And like, survival living, it's just trying to grab a coat of green and slap it on. But that red still creeps out. Prioritises would be a better example. It's where you prime yourself with a coat of understanding, and then you cover yourself green, and that's how you fit in. And for other people, they might try to like paint the whole area they live in, like a section of the world, red. So they still fit in their own spot, but now they're stuck in a certain area that they can't really explore out of without feeling out of place. That's why you might meet a lot of egotistical people who are very specialists. Like, you'll see it a lot in the construction industry. You'll see a lot in STEM fields where if they're not talking about golf or work, they don't want to talk at all. I used to be that guy. If I wasn't talking about work, I didn't want to talk. So when it came to like me going out with my ex to trivia night, I would literally just either be like, huh, this sucks. Yeah. And like, turning your obsession into PhD is nothing wrong. Like, there's nothing wrong with specializing and doing what you love and making it fun. As long as you can get away with it. The point of it is that if you can't get away with it, where like you need other things in your life fulfilled, and your thing that you're investing a lot of time and energy to doesn't fulfill it, and that's where it's like, okay, that's a problem. You have to acknowledge it and like find a way. Either find a partner that can cover your bases, or you have to cover your own base, or you just try to make that need not a need anymore. And that's why a lot of guys in the construction industry are always like, I don't need sunscreen because it's fucking not manly. Because the idea of putting more work in when they're already at the mental limit is so much overwhelming. So that's why they try to turn that need into a not need. Because they're trying to focus on just working. They don't want to worry about health. They don't want to worry about all these other things in life. And that's why some people try to opt for dating someone that covers their bases. That's why they always say the opposite attract. Where this big manly guy will end up dating like a small submissive girl who's really good at cooking and stuff so that he can just do the one thing he's good at. And hey, if that works, go for it. But it doesn't work for everyone, because life is getting so expansive now that you can't just do everything unless you can clone yourself or get a time machine and go back or live forever. Unfortunately, the reality is that being able to pivot and enjoy the trends that come, or when life has certain needs met, that's very important. That's very important to be able to meet that. So for some people, they're very fortunate enough to be such a great specialist, like Olympians, that they can afford to do one thing and be good at it. But that's only because us as a society allows that to be a useful thing. Because let's be honest, a person in soccer, he's really really good at soccer, like Ronaldo. If no one gives a shit about soccer, his skill of kicking a ball around isn't that useful. But we valued it because it gives us a sense of right versus wrong. You know how by the feeling of being right gives you a sense of satisfaction in life. That's why you find people in communities always into sports and stuff. They find a huge sense of satisfaction by, hey, I bought this ticket, I'm now supporting this guy, and if he wins, I win. Therefore, we win. That's why you never hear guys say, oh, this team won. They always say, we won if they're part of the team, or you lost. Because it's that mindset where if you can't do everything in life, you try to live for other people. And that's why people love listening to influencers and stuff. And it's kind of hardwired. Because think about it, we look at it, if we step back, imagine you're in a situation where you're like on an island, there's 10 of you, and you're all kind of hungry. And if you're spending too much time trying to keep everyone fed, and there's not enough food to go around, you're going to be stuck in the same position forever. And then eventually, food's going to run out and you die. And it makes more sense to like have a few people step back, eat a little bit less, so someone else can eat more, so that they can have enough energy and strength, they're thriving essentially, to be able to go out, get something done, and then come back and bring everyone back up. That's why you don't just walk up to a homeless person and be like, hey, give me $1. Because if you do that, taking money off them is a lot more than going to a rich guy and be like, hey, can I have $1? And then to them, it won't be much, because they're at a point where them helping you with that certain amount isn't as much costly to them. That's why it's natural to want to help people thrive. That's why you see parents stepping back on themselves to help provide structure and emotional safety and all the stuff, opportunities for their kids so that they can thrive. And then the general expectation that the kids will pay back the parent. And the only reason why that might not happen is because the kid might not feel emotionally safe enough to want to reconnect with their parents because something happened. And that's why they don't talk to the parents anymore. And then the parents are like, what? But I gave you a mouse. I gave you blah, blah, blah. And then there's a general argument of, I didn't ask to be born. And then that's how it gets a bit messy. And it depends on your values there. But generally, if things go well and no one's doing it out of malice, you generally want to pay back your family. That's why I'm trying to help my parents retire. Even though all they've done is work all the time, that's the only thing they know. I'm helping them retire because I know that they can't work forever. It's not sustainable. They need to be able to enjoy life. And I understand, given their life experience and trauma, work is the only thing they know. The thing about trauma, right, that I don't think people necessarily talk about is that not all trauma is bad. The only reason why it sounds bad all the time is because we only mention it like directly when it's negative. Like, I have bipolar, that's why blah, 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 or I have depression, blah, blah, blah. And that's why people find it's like such a big topic, when the fact that Asian girls don't want to date me, that's a form of trauma. Now I'm not interested in Asian girls. That's a weird one, but it's not a bad one. It's just my environment molds you so that you pivot. It's like epigenetics. I'll give you a really, really weird example, but so hear me out. If you're on an island and you're always grown to taught guys with mustache are attractive, anyone else are bad people, chances are you're going to grow up thinking guys with mustaches are attractive, unless you feel safe enough to explore and find others and they're safe to connect with. And generally when you're thriving, you're more open to connect with someone who's opposite of you or who's completely different to you, because now you get to as long as they're aligned with you, of course, but generally, it sounds a bit sentimental, but you don't know where you find love until one day it'll come unexpectedly and suddenly. Yeah, if this is me referring to the Asian thing, I was just talking about examples of like trauma, how like some things will happen and generally you're more open-minded to try open to everything, but then things will happen and they will kind of make you repivot because you've learned, because the point of trauma is to help you live better. But sometimes when you don't understand your trauma, it keeps you trapped in another problem that you tend to not be able to get out of because you don't understand how that problem happened in the first place. Like the point of like anxiety is to help you like do something, but sometimes when you don't understand your anxiety, and you're told to calm down, don't do anything, stay still, it just doesn't fix the problem and gets worse and worse because you're not fixing that. If you aren't in a good headspace, thriving, etc., then it's hard to find love, even if love's in front of you. You might not recognize it and embrace it. This is all my expect. Okay. Yes. Okay. I understand the question now. Yeah. I understand your insight now. Yeah. That is true. Yeah. If you're not curious, it's really hard to embrace new things because there's a spectrum. There's curiosity, and judgment. They're literally the opposite of each other. Because think about it. Being curious means you're open to new information without trying to jump to a conclusion. And then judgment is literally like, I have to cut off new information now just so I can decide on a choice now. And when you're like not thriving and you're surviving, you're usually on a time pressure. You're usually on a deadline. Usually that if you don't achieve something by this point, you die. That's why it's so hard to find love and do the work to really understand it. And so sometimes that's why love bombing, that is the thing. Because back in the day, a guy couldn't live forever because he might die defending the village. So girls who generally have more stability tend to put their own opinions onto them. And that's why a lot of girls like are very quick to it happens guys too, but I'm generalizing here. Where girls will assume the best traits out of people. That's why a halo effect is a thing. Because back then, if you look healthy, you generally look good. Because back then, you couldn't fake your looks. Like, you couldn't get plastic surgery, you couldn't really wear makeup. So if you were healthy looking, you're generally a good person because it means you made the right decision and made the right judgments constantly, enough times to look good. And nowadays, people can change it. People can hide that. And that's why emotional intelligence is becoming a new currency, because now it's like, oh, so you get plastic surgery, cool, you can wear makeup, so now I need to figure out if you're a good person or not, because if I have kids with you and you're emotionally chaotic and you want to kill our kids all of a sudden, that's not good. And I'm gonna start trying to deal with that now. That's why behaviors and looks are two important things to a thriving person, because not just looks, I mean looks in the terms of health. I can go deeper in the whole topic of the science of attractiveness, where it's not just about your looks. It's about your social attractiveness, mental attractiveness, and physical attractiveness. But that's a whole separate topic. But yeah, otherwise, the love that you find when you're not in a good space is going to be more like, oh, you impose an ideal onto someone because you're hoping that this person has something that you don't have. And then now it becomes, instead of a love where it's like they love you for you, it becomes more of a love where it's about what you give, what you provide, and what you do, and what standards, what values you conform to externally. And I'll be honest, from that living personally through that experience, it's very terrifying because it's so easy to just mess up and then have that pulled out of the rug on you, and then boom, you're alone anyway. So you might as well be yourself and live your best life. And that's why I did what I did, because I might as well be me if me being someone else's ideal person doesn't work. How do you feel so far from that sentiment, Jocelyn?
Yeah, I can relate to a lot of the points.
Okay. Just gonna quickly check another few questions. I got a few messages earlier. Just a second. Also, Rudolph, if you have any questions, feel free to ask, by the way. and thank you so much for joining us today. Okay, so I have a question for Amara. She asked, what is an advice that you didn't really care about until later, which made sense? And it kind of relates to the first topic, the topic we just talked earlier about like love bombing and like putting your ideas in someone. And that is, trust takes time. At first, when in my first love, I was literally like, oh, you can like love someone so much straight away and like trust them a lot straight away. But unfortunately, like this is where like trauma can change you as a person. Because for some people, it's okay to give everything and trust them and give them a lot of like emotional privilege. And they happen to be good people, so they don't betray that. And then some people will take advantage of that and manipulate you and then burn you out until you're a shell of a person. And that can happen. But when it comes to trust takes time, it means more like, rather than just blindly giving people like your extra privileges because they haven't yet earned it, you take your time to ask the right questions, do the right actions until you learn more of their values. Because something that people don't tell you is that in an adult thriving relationship, or in any relationship generally, is trust it erodes if you don't maintain it. Like if you don't actively prove it. Not in a way where you have to like be over top. It's just you have to constantly communicate, because if you go do new things all the time, your values are gonna adapt and things can change. Like the reason why people don't just give you $1 million when you first talk to them, right? It's because they don't trust you. But like if we all knew to trust each other, like 100% knew that 100% this person is a trustworthy person, you can go up to a millionaire and be like, hey, I have an idea, it's gonna work out, just give me $1 million. They're like, oh yeah, go for it, here you go. But unfortunately, there's a reason why people don't do that. It's because they've learned that you can't just trust people blindly. And it's because people who are surviving, they tend to not be able to choose the better path because of their situation. So they can, and it's very tempting to deceive and manipulate to get the outcome you want. And that's kind of like, because when you're in surviving, you don't care about the journey, you care about more the destination. And that's why people are willing to fudge the truth a bit in order to get what they want. So that's why when it comes to an adult thriving relationship, the rules are different, because now you're like, you don't just give straight away. Here's a caveat, like you can trust someone really quickly, but you have to do the trusting process really fast. Like you can talk to someone, ask the right questions, and because you have really good people skills and you have a lot of life experience and strong values, you can figure out just from the two things they said to you, they have this and that and this other trauma. And because of those traumas, you know that they're not going to do this and that and this. And then boom, you suddenly figure out this person's life story in like 5 minutes of talking to them. And that's the specialty of small talk that people don't notice. That's why people say, oh, I hate small talk, it's so a waste of time. It's not a waste of time, because a waste of time is not picking up the little signs and just talking to someone for like 2 weeks straight just to figure out you don't even know who they are as people, because you don't notice all these little things that people hint at you to tell you that me doing this communicates this and that. Therefore, because you're not listening to those more informations, because you're only judging things by the actions at a time, you can't really figure out who they are as a person. It's kind of like the saying, actions speak. You know how they say actions speak louder than words? There's a saying that when you're thriving, it goes beyond it. It's called commitment. Screams louder than action. I'll give you a really crude example. Okay, so imagine like we all can agree. Like some people disagree and they're psychopaths, but like murder's bad. On paper, action-wise, yeah, it's bad. But let's say someone built a time machine, goes back, and goes up to Hitler as a baby, like, hey, little buddy, how are you doing? Fucking just gives him a headlock and call it a day. A lot of people would say that his actions, while it was bad, his intention was noble. And because of that, they don't want to send him to prison, because he saved millions of people's lives like that. That's why you see people where like they fought back. Like, so they beat up a predator who are hurting kids. They say, oh, don't send them to jail. Even though they beat up the guy, everyone pass. It's because people will recognize the intention and the commitment that person had. And the only way to recognize someone's commitment is to be able to pick up the small signs, the way they communicate, and the integrity you have. Like, if I said that I believe I'm a good person, and then I proceed to do something that makes me a bad person, you're not going to believe what I just said anymore. But if someone literally said, hey, I'm a good person, and they proceed to maintain being a good person by doing good actions constantly that aligns with their intention, like that they just mentioned to you, now you could trust them more because they've proven that even though there's times where they could be a bad person, it's easier for them. They chose not to do it. And that is actually a very underrated method to like achieve greatness in terms of like, for example, diet. A lot of people try to restrict their diet and stuff to like be able to lose weight and stuff. But instead of doing that, you can just realign your values to the point where you know that just as much as you don't hurt a person, like you don't want to kill a person because you know you in your own values, murder's bad. You could do the same thing with, like masturbation, eating junk food. You can do the same thing where it's not, you don't restrict yourself because your values have changed to the point that you've grown beyond that. You elevate your stance to the point where you outgrown the habit. So you don't do it because you know you're better, you know yourself better, and you won't do it. And then it doesn't become a restriction anymore. It now becomes simply part of you to not do the thing. But because people don't know themselves really well, they have to use very shame-driven tactics in order to be productive. So that, for example, with like diets, they might literally not buy the food and lock it away, or they will, every time they eat it, they punish themselves by exercising a lot, or they just don't say yes to social events because they know that, oh, if I go out, I'll eat. And you have a very toxic food relationship with yourself. And that's how the eating disorders become a thing, because you basically refed information to yourself to have a form of trauma now that now makes you afraid of certain foods. And because it becomes a thing that you constantly think about all the time, you've now, like, when you're at your lowest moment, when you drop your guard, you just go for it and you just binge eat a crazy amount. And that's why people relapse when it comes to addictions and drugs, because they're using tactics that works short term, but it doesn't work long term, because those things are not going to disappear. They'll always be there. And the more you constantly make it a big deal, the more you're going to like think about it. Like, I used to have a big deal with issue with masturbation, but now I don't do it anymore because I basically studied what makes a person attractive. I study like how behaviors make an impact to someone, to the point that when I watch porn, I'm looking at it, I'm like, this girl, the fact that she's not really showing emotion, I know that she's not loving this job. Therefore, it puts me off, because it's just like the quality of these, like, it becomes such a low quality content that you respect yourself more to not do it, but not in a way where it's like, oh, you look at porn as bad, you just don't think about it because it's not your thing anymore. Rudolph has said a few things, and I'll quickly pop and read what he said. If you're not in a good headspace, it's hard to find love. We already covered that. And then when I was my true self, I did find true love. It sounds so sentimental when I say it like this, but it's true. Love built on truth, that's true love, really. Love built on fantasy or a role or false identity isn't sustainable. Yep. And internalized shame is very traumatic. I lived with internalized shame for years, and when it's lifted, I didn't realize just how traumatic it was on me, and I felt so incredibly healed. Its freedoms is having something that you used to be afraid of no longer scary to you. Like loneliness for me, like I used to be terrified of being lonely, so that I would literally do all these things like people please, give up myself as a person to like keep people around. And nowadays I enjoy the fact that I'm alone, because I actually have the opposite issue now where I have a lot of people talking to me, and I have to, like, unfortunately give myself space to be able to do what I need to do best, because I have a vision that I want to achieve. And yeah, it's fulfilling in such a great way, because it's basically an ultimate form of conquering insecurity. And that's something that not a lot of people can afford to say, I conquer insecurity. Like, not a lot of, like, back in the day, if a tiger wants to eat you, you have to, the only thing you can do is outrun it and like maybe fight it at best, but there's always going to be more tigers. But if you can literally build a society where tigers are no longer a thing, you're going to have so much like satisfaction from that. You're going to feel so much triumph, because that's a massive form of, like, I guess you're being hardwired to be like, oh my God, you just did something for society that now people don't have to worry about this danger anymore. And I think because these days we're lacking so much inspiration, and we're no longer able to just really do new things to make things easy for others, especially when a lot of people have the resentful mindset where it's like, if I've gone through this hell, they have to go through it too. We don't give them free uni. We don't give the hands out because they make them snowflakes. Like, no. Like, back in the day, we used to ride around on horses. Now we have cars, but we'll still have to put in the work to travel. But the only difference is that now we can travel further and go to new places more. And because we can go to these new places more, we can do more things. But because we don't have that mindset anymore to embrace that, we just we're stuck in a position where we're not, like at this rate, we're not going to have self-driving cars be a normal thing in society, where traffic is going to be nothing in the future, because people are too afraid to have the courage. They don't have the courage to trust in the idea of a car that will drive around, because there's many reasons for it. Some people want to have a sense of control, and I'm not saying to replace everything with self-driving cars, but there's a time and place in society where maybe you don't want to have a car yet. You just want to focus on other things in life, and you just need to get to A, B is important. So maybe not having a car is important to you yet, but then when you get older, self-expression is a big deal. So now you want to be able to express yourself through the way you decorate your car. And I get that, and I'm all for it, but not everyone values the same thing. And a lot of people, I feel like, take it that if I care about this thing, everyone cares about it, and anyone who doesn't are bad people. No, people can just be indifferent and just have other values. It's more sustainable in the future to be able to allocate spaces, but not in a like ism way where like we're trying to segregate people, but make it that instead of living in this area because it's cheap, you live in this area because it's with the people aligned with you. And because if people align with you, it's easier for you to maintain the lifestyle that you have, that you want to have, because this community supports that. And if everyone on a large scale, like say all these people who like to do this thing goes here, all these people like to do this thing go here, and you can still meet up in places where it's open-minded, then it can be sustainable to like on a larger scale to be able to live like that. And then plus that's how you can technically improve the government system, because instead of you just not understanding what the hell is going on, you have people that lives in your area that will literally knock on your door, have a conversation for you like for an hour or two, and because they know the thing so well and they can communicate the people skills and you can communicate back what you want, they'll figure out the best solution. It's like going up to a builder, but I want to build this house, but I don't know how. The builder just asks you a few questions, and then now you know what you want, and then they understand your needs, and then they'll do the work for you to decorate, design the perfect house for you, and then boom, you trust them to get the right thing for you, and you go out, and they go out into the next group, and because people are living in the same area, think very similar, it's a lot more efficient to be able to be like, okay, this area values this, therefore we're gonna put this area is gonna vote for this, for this issue. Like the whole government thing, it can be a huge topic on its own. I'm not saying the idea of government I have, it would override the existing one. So that's a whole separate topic for another day. But yeah, I just realized I yapped a lot. I feel like I want to ask you, like, do you have anything you want to say for yourself, Jocelyn, or add in?
I was gonna ask you a question actually about like, can you dive into how you become independent and not rely on the government?
Okay.
But I think that's got to be a quite over the time.
I'll try to answer in like a minute. So basically, the biggest issue is dependence, right? So the only way, because right now the rules exist to protect people's lives, but it gets to the point where these rules are kind of restricting you. There's like people who want to change the house, who wants to add an extra room to the house, but the government's like, no, we don't approve it, so you can't do that, even though it's their own fucking house. And it's like, dude, fucking just outside, I get it. If it's my carport, put water in someone else's house, yeah, okay, fine. I'll get your approval. But when it comes to my own fucking inside my house, fucking let me do what I want. And the government's just like, well, we gotta put our finger in the pie somehow. I'm like, and that's why like rules can be malicious, where like, and you know, the argument for saying that rules are good, slavery used to be a rule, like, but it's not good, was it? So rules can be bad if the context doesn't suit it. And I want to be clear that I don't condone slavery at all, okay? So, because it made it sound like that slavery at one point was good. No, it's not good at all. But, so obviously right now you have to bend the rules. And that's what Thrivism is advocating for, where you understand why rules exist in the first place and you bend it respectfully so that you get what you need and done. And then once it's proven that it's safe and it doesn't hurt people, the rules will shift. But it requires a social proof that people can believe in. For example, for me, like, I'm not afraid to admit it, but like, I worked on my own. I use loopholes to make it technically legal, but I work on my own with my own clients to do jobs as an electrician, even though I'm technically an apprentice. But I'm an apprentice for 6 years. Like, I know what I'm doing at this point. But because of COVID, all this dumb shit, I have to do extra, like, wait a whole 2 years for fucking TAFE to do a thing for me. And it's just paperwork. It's not me learning new shit. It's just literally saying, oh, find this rule, prove it's right, good, cool. No one's gonna actually ever do that in real life. They're just gonna make sure the engineer did their job right and make sure the thing doesn't explode and call it a day. That's what an electrician does. But because people don't get it and they are afraid that things go wrong because they don't trust you as a person. They have to put all these oppressive rules on you to make you like stuck. Like then, but it gets to the point where like if you try to follow the rules by the letter, either a project that gets too expensive, they won't happen. That's how you rob inspiration. That's why not a lot of new things are happening. Like I literally helped a community, like our client of mine, start a new thing called indoor playgrounds in Australia where they start expanding. But before, if we try to do it the right way, because I was working with electricians there who will say, oh, you gotta follow the rules, bro. You gotta do this. I'm like, I did follow the rules. It's just I'm bending the rules. Because it's like, you have to put, they want you to put literally everything in a box up when it's freaking like 6 meters in the air. Like, unless what some guy comes in with a ladder, they happen to have a 6-meter ladder, breaks into place, and be like, let me just find something I can touch. Put a ladder up and climb up, and let me just touch it. You can't stop anyone from hurting themselves if they want to hurt themselves. The point of like our duty is to make sure no like non-deliberate attempts to hurt yourself can happen. And that's the standard for electrical, but like because of these rules, this guy's like, you gotta make it bulletproof. You gotta make sure that no guy can come in with a chainsaw and not kill himself when he cuts something. That's gonna cost like an extra $100,000 if you do that. And then this project will never happen. And then this is why nothing happens. And that's why you're stuck working for a company that pays you like, yeah, they pay you good, but it's costing the future of society because you get all this money now, but then the next guy has to pay with the cost of living. And that's how it gets so expensive and you can't afford to do anything with your life. And you get stuck in a box and then life becomes pointless. And then you just want to neck yourself because like, what's the point? That's why society like Japan, Korea are having declining population because they're very rule driven. And because they're rule driven, you can't find connection. They can't find love and then they just don't bother. And then boom, population decline and now they're gonna be old people. Now all of a sudden they more rules, especially in Japan, is better. Because now they're trying to put more taxes on tourists. They're trying to charge twice as much for tourists to come to Japan. And they're trying to gatekeep like they won't let foreigners have jobs in like bars because they think that, oh, if the foreigner comes in, our local people won't get any jobs. And the question would be like, why are they not getting any jobs? It's probably because they don't have an interesting personality. They're relying on the system to do the work for them, so they just do that part. And because the system can't keep up with it, that's why it's falling apart. And now the system's trying to gatekeep that. And then Japan's going to basically go for another 200 years of fuck everyone else, let's do our thing. And like, hey, it can work, but it's gonna like cost the future of that community of like lack of innovation. And then eventually, if some country wants to take over Japan, they can, because they might have technology that's more advanced than Japan. Because Japan decided to keep to themselves for 200 years, whatever, again. And then, yeah, that's how society can, like, if we don't change and we don't pivot to thrivism at this point, I generally believe the world's going to end with apocalypse or a nuke, because we're not willing to try new things. And because less things are coming around and more people are popping out, people are going to step on each other more to get ahead. And then people are going to hate each other more. And people are going to be like, oh, some guy is going to have the power to have a gun. And this guy's going to shoot someone, and this person has a red button, and it's going to press it, and a nuke's going to fly, and boom, country gone, and then the world ends. Anyways, that's been an hour. I think I should call the Q&A for today. I only answered like, 4 questions, but thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Jocelyn, for joining me today and listening. Emphasis on the listening part. I'll promise next time I'll let you have more of an input. I thank you, Rudolph, for joining me today. I really appreciate you chiming in and chatting. That's a lot. And honestly, thank you guys for like letting me feel very at home. I'm living in my own home, but like, you know, feeling comfortable yapping. And yeah, I may pop back again. Maybe we'll do this weekly. Who knows? We'll figure it out. I didn't expect this to go perfectly, but I hope everyone who's listening today really enjoyed the things I've said. And I'm willing to hear any feedback. And if, you know, yeah, thank you so much for joining me today. Yeah, I don't know how to end it. Like, do you want to say anything, Jocelyn, before we go?
I just wanted to say it was really great hearing your insight. Like, you actually answered most of all of my questions. Like, do you want to hear the list?
Oh yeah, go for it. Shoot the list out.
Wait. I was rushing.
Yeah.
When you define thrivism, how is it sustainable? And then the question I asked you.
Yep.
And then there's just like random deep questions.
Yeah, okay.
Wow.
Yeah, I guess the coolest thing about thrivism is that the main goal of it is to make life complexities uncomplicated. And sometimes the answer from thrivism covers everything else, because it's not a specialist answer where it only answers like the symptoms. It answers the root issue. The point, like, there's like 3 ways in a nutshell that you can approach life. There's a lot more to it, but like in a layman's term, there's 3 ways you can ultimately approach life. And Thrivism, for the audience that's listening in, they tend to align with the information that Thrivism offers, and everyone else that don't align with it, they won't be here to listen. So it's not a big deal. I don't have to like filter it too much. But yeah, all right, I'll end the call today. But thank you so much everyone for joining. And yeah, if there's interest, I'll do another one soon. All right, see you guys.
This is Ardenia Signal.
A voice from a future we still have time to build.